Roger Stone, great friend of Liquid Lunch, and one of the key forces behind Donald Trump even thinking about and then running for president, is now facing jail, I think like 40 months or something. And he's within the last 2 weeks, going to jail. Now you have other dirtbags like Michael Avenatti, who were already let out of jail, but they want to put Roger, an elderly male, in. So much craziness. He just got his unconstitutional, in my view, gag order removed. And the first long-form interview he does is with none other than Frank Morano. And take a listen to some of the stuff. You can hear the whole thing, the whole hour at Morano Anywhere podcast. But right now, throughout the show today, I'm going to let you hear a few clips of Frankie's one-on-one with Roger Stone facing time in jail for basically no crime. Take a listen.
Yes, Robert Mueller saw the film, but he thought the title was Get Roger Stone.
All right, guilty as charged. Let me ask you where your case stands now. You're no longer gagged, but just last week, the judge essentially dismissed your legal team's claim that there was some juror misconduct. We'll talk about that in a second. But just so folks know where we are now, as of now, assuming no executive intervention, where do you stand in terms of going to prison?
Well, I'm currently under a court order, the same order in which my very strong motion for a mistrial and a new trial was denied. I am ordered to surrender to the Bureau of Prisons next Thursday for incarceration. And that is where we are today. I have a right to appeal the case. I think there's a 14-day window from the day that the judgment was finalized, which I think was last Thursday. I am certainly prepared to appeal if I need to. People need to understand that an appeal is a $1 million, adventure. I raised and spent about $2 million on my initial legal defense from 65,000 great Americans, Trump supporters, Republicans, friends across the country. One of the very first things the government does when they want you to make a deal and not go to trial is to destroy you financially. And they have been quite successful at that. Basically, I lost my home, my savings, my insurance, most of it, my car, because of the gag order, largely lost my ability to make a living because I live by writing and speaking. And the things that people were willing to pay me to write and speak about were the very things that I was, by court order, prohibited from writing or speaking about. So we've been living a very hand-to-mouth existence. They put that pressure on you to, as they did on, say, General Flynn, to induce him to plead. But not only did I refuse, but as I will tell you later, I refused to make a deal and roll on the President of the United States, which is what this was really all about when you get right down to it. Obviously there's a great deal of public speculation about some executive relief, a commutation of my sentence, or a pardon. I can tell you firsthand, I've been promised neither. I have formally requested neither. I know and have worked for Donald Trump for over 30 years, almost 40 years. Nobody tells Donald Trump what to do.
Yeah, that's for sure. Let me ask you on the pardon front.
And nobody tells him what not to do. He will make his own judgment in his own time. His public comments have certainly been encouraging, but it is an unknown question at this time.
All right. Well, this is what the president said when he was asked about the possibility of a Roger Stone pardon and about the Roger Stone case in general. This was about 2 months ago.
Okay, you have any questions on Roger Stone, sir? On Roger Stone, isn't your tweet political interference? No, not at all. He was treated very badly. 9 years recommended by 4 people that perhaps they were Mueller people. I don't know who they were, prosecutors. And I don't know what happened. They all hit the road pretty quickly.
Mr. President, you're concerned about the four prosecutors?
Thank you, Mr. President. It's been 17 years.
I'm not concerned about
It's
anything.
been 17 years.
Does it show that there's something wrong in
I'm not concerned about anything. They ought to go back to school and learn, because I'll tell you what, the way they treated people, nobody should be treated like that. Are you considering a pardon for? I don't want to say that yet, but I tell you what, people were hurt viciously and badly by these corrupt people. And I want to thank, if you look at what happened, I want to thank the Justice Department for seeing this horrible thing. And I didn't speak to them, by the way, just so you understand. They saw the horribleness of a 9-year sentence for doing nothing. You have murderers and drug addicts, they don't get 9 years. 9 years for doing something that nobody even can define what he did. Somebody said he put out a tweet, and the tweet, you based it on that. We have killers, we have murderers all over the place, nothing happens, and then they put a man in jail and destroy his life, his family, his wife, his children. 9 years in jail, it's a disgrace. In the meantime, Comey walks around making book deals, the people that launched the scam investigation, and what they did is a disgrace. And hopefully it'll be treated fairly, everything else will be treated fairly.
Boy, it doesn't sound like a guy that's on the fence there about a pardon. So it's safe to say you'd hope for a pardon, right, at this point, Roger?
No, let me put it more precisely, Frank. I am praying for a pardon. I have, and this has been pretty widely covered, I have renewed my faith. I was born a Catholic, as you were. I had my sacraments in the Catholic Church. My mother was, very adamant about our religious instruction. But I also admit that I fell away from the church, that I had some wild years. But I had occasion back in, I guess it was January, to have a meeting with Reverend Franklin Graham because I was in turmoil. I was angry. I was scared. I was furious. I couldn't sleep. And I asked him, what should I do? And he said, this is really very simple. He said, you have to put yourself in the hands of God. You have to renew your faith in Jesus Christ, recognize that he will never abandon you. He will always protect you if you will be faithful and adhere to, a faith walk. And I thought about it for a little while, and then I went to a revival where he was preaching, and the moment came in the revival in which he asks those who are sinners, which is all of us, to stand up and renounce your sin, confess your sin, ask for forgiveness, and pledge that you want Jesus Christ to come into your heart. And I felt the calling. Now, Frank, I know there are people who will say, oh, come on, Stone is just posturing, it's a head fake, it's just another dirty trick. We'll get back to that later. But I don't really care what they say. They said that about Chuck Colson, one of the Watergate figures who went to prison. Chuck Colson founded one of the most successful and impactful evangelical prison ministries in history. He helped thousands and thousands and thousands of people turn their lives around. So I don't really care what people think. My faith is in God. He will see that the right thing is done. God believes in justice. God hates lying and he hates untruthfulness. So I am praying for a pardon. I wish the churches were open. They're still closed here. I have returned to St. Anthony's in Fort Lauderdale, where Father Michael Grady has given me really solid spiritual advice. But it has made me more serene, more at peace with this whole process, because I do believe one way or another, justice will prevail.
I do think if it were, say, somebody like Michael Avenatti or Michael Cohen or Elliot Spitzer, that on the eve, or Sheldon Silver, on the eve of going to prison, made a point of rediscovering their faith, I have a feeling the media critic and political analyst Roger Stone would view that transformation a bit more cynically. Am I wrong on that?
Well, perhaps not. Look, there are no atheists in foxholes. I understand that. But it is, this has really changed my life in so many ways. My wife is very, very happy about it. As I said, I'm a Catholic, the church of my grandparents and my parents and all my forebears. I don't believe strictly in all of the Catholic Catholic dogma, but they got the fundamentals right. You know, Jesus Christ is the only begotten Son of God. And I believe in the Holy Trinity. I believe in forgiveness. I believe in redemption. I believe in the confession of sins. And it has really eased my path. I'm not trying to proselytize here, but you asked me about where my head was. That's where my head is. I am.
Bang, and there you have it. That's where Roger Stone's head is. And we'll have a lot more from Frankie's exclusive interview with Roger Stone. He's facing going to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go straight to jail for allegedly making a false statement, which he corrected, and which he was allowed to correct, and threatening a witness who has subsequently come forward and said, he didn't really threaten me. I never feel threatened by him, and I don't think he should go to jail. But yet, the guy's facing jail time. My prediction, President Trump knows what a great patriot Roger Stone is. And he will, if pressed, if Roger exhausts all his options, I believe the president will be sure to give him a pardon. Paul Manafort, I'm not so sure about, but definitely Roger Stone, as far as I'm concerned, he's going to get himself a pardon. I wish he didn't have to get dragged further. I mean, he's lived in the mud, but he's getting dragged through the mud financially. You can't restart your career when you're facing jail, and people don't want to pay you to write a book until the book is written, so we don't know how this one ends yet. But he is a best-selling author, so we'll see. And Frank and I have tried any way we can to keep the cause of Roger Stone. You can go to the RogerStoneDefenseFund.com. This is the first time in nearly a year, I think, that he's allowed to talk. He had his First Amendment constitutional rights taken away from him by the judge in the case, and the judge also has kind of laughed at all of his arguments, including the last one, that the jury foreperson was biased and lied on her voir dire questionnaire. But in any event, Roger's seen an uphill battle. I personally thought that he should sue his attorneys for the representation they gave him, because even in regular, everyday Joe Main Street business, you start talking to somebody possibly doing something you want to look into them, you Google them. And a simple Google would have shown that this woman was tainted, if anything, that she wouldn't be a fair arbiter. And she said she could be, and nobody caught it. So blame could lie everywhere. But unfortunately, Roger's the one looking at stripes. And he usually looks pretty darn good in his pinstripes. But I don't want to see him with horizontal stripes, that's for sure.